Wouldn't it be great if all you had to do to increase your fees was just turn up to someone's house and say, we're 1.5%. And they went, yeah, no problem. No pushback, no awkward conversations, no negotiating yourself down before you've even started. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. I'm working with a number of agents at the moment on increasing their fees. And I wanted to just try and take a moment to share the process that I go through with them so that you can actually apply it to yourselves. Because this is where most people get it wrong. Okay, this says video number 5, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's video number 6. And this one, why most estate agents can't raise their fees. And of course, what actually works. Wouldn't it be great if all you had to do to increase your fees was just turn up to someone's house and say, we're 1.5%. And they went, yeah, no problem. No pushback, no awkward conversations, no negotiating yourself down before you've even started. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. I'm working with a number of agents at the moment on increasing their fees. And I wanted to just try and take a moment to share the process that I go through with them so that you can actually apply it to yourselves. Because this is where most people get it wrong. They think raising fees is about confidence or some clever scripts, some one-liners, or just asking for more. It's not. It's about building a business that actually justifies the fee. And before we even get into that, we need to be really clear on something. What actually is a business? So in my mind, a business is a group of people and assets working together to deliver value. And that's important you understand that it's all about providing value. The more value, the more clients will be happy to pay. And here's why this matters. Because increasing fees is one of the fastest ways to transform your business. If you increase your fee by 25%, your revenue increases by 25%. But here's the bit most people don't think about. That usually more than doubles your profit. Same number of instructions, same team, same structure, but dramatically better results. But here's a catch. The purpose of a business isn't profit. The purpose of a business is to provide value. If you focus on profit, it rarely works. If you focus on value, profit will follow. And profit matters because profit creates cash flow, and cash flow is like oxygen in a business. Without it, things get very difficult very quickly. So if you're going to increase fees properly, we have to start in the right place. When I first turn up at a business, the first thing I do is not talk about fees. I look at everything they're doing, and I'm looking for one or two things that actually makes them different. I'll give you a proper example. One of my clients had a marketing specialist, a proper photographer, a content person, someone producing property details. Now, from an operational point of view, that's a great idea. Estate agents are estate agents, but they're salespeople. They're typically not marketeers. They're not specialists in this area. So having somebody who specialises in the marketing of your property, they're better at it. They're more efficient. And the agent can get back to selling more houses. But there's another opportunity in that as well. The marketing can have character, a theme, a style, something that makes it stand out. But when we actually reviewed what they were doing, there was no discernible difference. The properties didn't jump off the page. There was nothing that made you stop scrolling on Rightmove. So the first stage wasn't raising fees. It was creating something that was genuinely different. We sat down with the marketing team and said, right, how do we make this special? And here's the funny thing. They knew all the answers. They were better at it than us because they're marketeers. But what they've managed to do is copy what estate agents normally do because they assumed that was what we wanted. So step one isn't raising your fees. Step one is creating something that is actually worth more. Then we move into an interesting exercise. If you want to double your fee and still have the clients delighted, what would you have to deliver? And when you ask that properly, the room comes alive. Lots of the responses, people will come up with better marketing, better negotiating, achieve a better price, reduce fall-throughs, speed up that process, managing the 19-week delay better. All of these things that customers genuinely care about. So we write them all down. Then we look at them. What do we already do? Because a load of these things we're actually doing, but maybe keeping it a secret. What can we improve? What can we introduce? How do we make sure the customer actually feels that value? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Anyway, for a nerd like me, Princeton University ran an experiment. That's Princeton University in California. And this is a pretty special university. This is up there with Yale and Harvard. In fact, I think at one stage, Einstein actually lectured at this university. So they were asked by Californian winemakers if they could research what it is they needed to do to increase the value of their wines, to increase the quality of their wines so that they could be better than their French counterparts. So one of the experiments they carried out is they got people into a room and gave them 3 wines. They gave them a cheap wine, a mid-price wine, and an expensive wine. They asked them to taste them and score them, describe them, and the expensive wine was rated the best quality, the best taste, the most enjoyable. It provided the greatest satisfaction, except for one thing. It was the same wine they were tasting. So what does that tell you? The brain doesn't just judge the product, it interprets it. And price is one of the biggest signals it uses. So there was this university looking into all the things that Californian wines could do, looking into their grapes, their method of growth, the production, the fermentation, all of these phenomenal things. But the thing that had the biggest difference was to alter the price they asked. So what do estate agents do? They often turn up to the market appraisal or evaluation. They explain everything they do, all the extra value, and then they charge the same. Or even worse, they charge less. And the client's brain in the back goes, if this was really better, it would cost more. So undercharging actually damages your credibility. So once you've got the value in place, the next thing you need is trust. I often talk to people about the trustometer, which is an indicator from 0 all the way through to 100%. And people don't buy until the trust hits 100%. And that trust doesn't start at the door. It starts before you even arrive, the pre-valuation process. Before you go on the valuation, do they know who you are? Have they seen your face? Do they recognize you? Because when you knock on the door, you want to be recognized, and the basics matter. I've been on valuations before where I didn't know the client's name. It hadn't been completed on the form. So you're going in with a complete blank, walking into the hallway, trying to look out for the post to try and work out what their name is, or asking awkward questions just to get the name out of them. Just compare that to having their name, having their situation, even small details about them. It's completely different. And here's the big point. I believe most people have chosen their favourite agent before anyone walks through the door. All you can do is mess it up. The valuation structure. One thing I've noticed about the whole valuation process is lots of people have post-valuation processes. We follow them up within 24 hours. We send them a letter. They go into a nurturing. That's quite common. The pre-valuation process, a bit rarer, but it's still pretty common. People send out a letter. Some will be good enough to send out a video. There are people who will send out possible details that they might be looking for. So there is a bit of a process beforehand. But what I have discovered is there's very little process with the actual valuation or market appraisal structure. There's not a structure from the moment that you knock on the front door. And actually there needs to be, because if you want to change that, if you want to make alterations, you need to measure how effective it is. If everybody's just turning up and doing it ad hoc, then you'll never know what works and what doesn't work. Most agents walk in and the client says, "Let me show you around." Don't. First, I sit down with the client. I follow a structure. I use the structure rapport, because I want to build rapport first. That's the first starting point. Giving them an overview of what's happening, really get to know and understand my customer. And then at the end, I give them a summary, which ultimately is a close. It's a summary close. One of the most powerful trust builders is telling people what you're going to do and then doing it. We all take it for granted because we do lots of market appraisals or valuations every day. But that customer will probably do about 2 or 3 every 5 years. So they're not quite familiar with the process. Put them at ease, tell them what's going to happen, explain to them what's happening and why you're doing it, and then doing it is a great way of building that trust. The other important one here, this is a bit that is often completely missed. Again, we move people all the time. It's normal for us. We understand the process. But for them, this is a massive decision. These vendors are about to spend a lot of money. They're about to go through a process that can take months to get through. It's stressful. It sits up there with deaths and divorce. So there must be something really important that is driving this move. And if you don't understand that, you can't do your job properly. You have to get really clear on why the hell are they moving? What matters most to them? Why would they possibly put themselves all through this? What outcome are they really looking for? Because that is what you are there to solve. And here's a big one for me. I talk about pricing before I give them a price. Because if you try and explain your pricing and why you've done it after the event, you sound like a typical cheesy commission breath estate agent just trying to justify the number you just gave them. So before I've even looked round the house, I explain why pricing correctly is critical. Why asking high isn't always best. And I talk through what are the options to achieve the best price. And I get agreement on some of these principles before I go around and look at the house. And then that creates what I call the gap, so that there is this gap. I've explained pricing techniques, why it's so important. Then we go and have a look around the property. And then after that, I give them the price. And then the price lands completely differently. It amazes me how often this part of the process has no structure. We just let valuers wing it, and then we wonder why the results are inconsistent. Post-valuation. Then we map out what happens next. Follow-up calls, reports, information, next steps. Do you drive round and drop the pack through the door, which is a great trick I used to find. I'd just say, I was just passing, I knock on the door, I thought I'd deliver this to you. When you build this with your team, it becomes their process. So now what you've built with your team is you've come up with a lot of ideas of how to increase value. You've talked about how you can put that value into what happens before the market appraisal, how that happens in the market appraisal, and what happens after the market appraisal. So then we get to the most important bit, follow-up, because people revert back very quickly. So you have to set expectations that you're going to come back to your team and check that they're maintaining all of these ideas and they're maintaining these actions and they put in place these processes. You support it, review it, because without that, typically nothing changes. There's a stat that says only about half the people in a training room actually do anything different after the training. So if you don't follow up, all this process, all this hard work of recognizing how to put in value, recognizing how to improve your service, recognizing how to improve the delivery of that service to your customer, will be all wasted if you don't follow up. So if you want to increase your fees, it's not just about asking for more. It's about firstly creating value, structure how you deliver it, building trust throughout the process. Because when you get those things right, higher fees don't feel like a fight. They feel inevitable. And if they don't, you haven't finished the job yet. So go back and do it again.